Hey, Austin.
How are you?
Good, man. What's going on, man? The last time that we spoke, you were in Ohio, and I've been following you, and I'm a little jealous you're in Florida. Are you in Miami?
Fort Lauderdale, so just north of Miami.
So how's life?
It's good, man. Just loving it down here. Kind of just trying to get the lay of the land, looking to buy a house down here to live in here in the next year or two. Just kind of trying to learn everything, keep business cranking. So life is good. How about you?
I can't complain. I mean, we've been busy. Actually, I'm excited to talk about real estate investing with you tonight. A lot of what we've been doing here is helping investors lately, and we'll talk about the market a little bit. And I actually bought a flip recently, about 30 days into it. We're actually painting it today, and so I'm kind of get my feet wet a little bit. But what pulled you to Florida?
A few reasons. Financially, I don't know if I'm just kind of like making this up, but it's a real thing, but it helps with the move. So also, there's no state income tax. So, I'll save 7 to 8% a year in taxes. So financially, it makes sense. It's always been a dream of mine I love the ocean. Anytime I vacation, I'm next to the ocean. So being close to the water, having views of it. And then I just believe like there's a lot of more higher level people in bigger cities. So going to a bigger city just to be able to be around, the right types of people and have the right types of conversations.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, look, guys, if you're just tuning in tonight, I'm really excited about this Tuesday night podcast. We have a returning contributor, Austin Rutherford. He's amazing. I mean, we've podcasted with him before. You can find our previous episode if you want to learn how Austin actually got started in the real estate business. Tonight, we're not really going to talk about that so much. We're going to dive into, what he's doing right now currently in the market. A lot of our audience they're desiring to get into flipping. It's a hot topic, or, passive income, residential rentals. So we're excited. The market is, shifting depending on who you're listening to. Some experts are saying that we hit the top. Others are saying not so much. So, guys, we thank you for tuning in. We encourage you also to check out Austin's social media. He has amazing social media. He's got amazing following, and he puts out content all the time. So check him out, subscribe, follow. All of his links will be in the show notes. Austin, thanks so much, man, for joining me again.
Absolutely. No, I'm looking forward to this, man.
So just give everybody, I mean, we don't, if you want to know more about Austin Rutherford and how he got started, like I said, we have a podcast for that. You could check it out on our audio and video channels as well as our social media. But Austin, just give everybody a brief overview of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Real quick, dream was to go to the NBA. That didn't work out. Fell in love with real estate. Bought my first rental property at 20 years old. Flipped my first house at 22 years old. 28 now. I've bought, built, sold, renovated, wholesaled, rentals, apartments, commercial buildings. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of properties over the last 7-ish years. And currently today, we're still flipping. We're still buying rental properties. I'm pushing the social media brand. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. I believe that, eyeballs is currency. So pushing that as much as possible. And then recently fell in love with cryptocurrencies as well. So social media, crypto, and real estate currently.
Yeah, as I had said, there's a lot of talk about real estate, where it fits into the financial markets today. I mean, we know that the last couple of years we've had a lot of institutional money buying up real estate. It's been a shortage. We've seen some of the all-time highs as far as the valuation of properties, distressed properties even. And I mean, it's been very difficult for investors to find great deals, and even more difficult for people that are inexperienced. As a seasoned real estate investor, Austin, what are you laser focused on right now?
Absolutely. And, I've seen the same things. The properties we used to buy for 40 grand, we're now buying for 150 grand. The competition, everybody and their mother's trying to get in real estate right now, which there's plenty of opportunity still, even with that. But I agree, it's getting competitive. Prices are going crazy. What we're focusing on right now, we buy a lot of our deals from other wholesalers, just because, again, the social media brand. Pumping out as much content as possible, and then bringing in deals. And then we also host like local meetups every month, just to connect with people. And that's done a lot for us too, to bring, again, wholesalers in and come to us for money, for experience, to buy the deal, whatever it looks like. Just finding a way to make money with other people.
Would you say you're more focused right now on the flip side or the buy and hold side?
Buy and holds, for sure. So I think it goes back to the individual and kind of where they are in their life. When I first started real estate, like, I didn't have money. So I had to flip houses to make money, because rental properties is a long-term play, right? You make a couple $100 a month, but long-term, you're getting wealthy instead of, some fast money. So I think it depends on each individual, kind of where they're at. For me right now, our first exit strategy is a rental property. And then if it doesn't fit that box, then we go to flip it and make money. So that's our strategy right now. I'm trying to buy as many rentals as possible, for the depreciation, the tax savings, for the appreciation, for the cash flow, and for the future wealth.
It's a lot less stressful, I guess, if you can make the numbers work to be in the rental buy and hold market right now, because the focus isn't on immediate profit. And so if you find yourself, I hate to use the word or the term overpaying, but who knows if we're overpaying right now? There's some experts that say, we know real estate follows inflation, and as their salaries go up, they can afford to pay more for where they live. Traditionally it's 3 times the amount, right? So when they're qualifying for mortgages or rentals, so that kind of pulls the market up. What markets are you currently buying in?
So just Columbus, Ohio right now. That's where the business was prior to moving to Florida. That's where I was born. So all the deals are in Columbus right now. And then just recently started looking for Airbnbs down here in South Florida. So nothing yet, but possibly coming soon.
So you moved to Florida, which, by the way, is that 800 miles away from
It's
Ohio?
a long way. I think it's like 14 or 15 hours.
14 or 15, okay. And now you're doing more business in Ohio. That's funny. How do you do that? How do you accomplish that? I know I was watching one of your flip videos, and you were talking about this house that you had bought, and I guess the foundation had problems and things like that. But anyway, before you got into buying that, there was urgency, and you needed to get the contract signed, and you kind of deployed a friend or somebody that works for you to get that contract signed. Is that, how do you manage to be so far away and, actively buy in that and manage? And
at the end of the day, the answer is, like, I have a great team around me. And the cool thing, when I was in Columbus, personally doing business in Columbus, it was all virtual even then. So we always hired boots on the ground inspectors to go and inspect and look at properties. So I had my team, acquisitions team, but we still had somebody else, boots on the ground, go out and be the ones to actually look at the properties. So that hasn't changed, since being down in Florida. We still have the boots on the ground. They walk through, they give us 250 pictures of a single family house. So if you have 200 pictures, what's the difference between looking at the pictures and actually physically walking the house, right? And this is like an inspector. They understand construction, so they're looking for this stuff. But we pay them, obviously, so there's a little bit, small cost to that. But that's what allows us to not be there personally. And then, for the example that you just said, I had a deal. It was smoking. I was in a different part of Florida at the time, and it was a great deal, but they needed somebody there in person. So, I picked up the phone. I'm like, yo, I need you to go do this for me. I'm going to email you the contract. I'll pay you $1,000 to go over there and get the deal. So, again, just having a brand and having people that, like and trust me and know me, it's I don't want to say easy, but, it's an awesome way to build relationships with people and, get things done at the end of the day. So my internal team, my external team, I have a property management company. I have a, person that runs the Airbnbs back in Columbus. So just having amazing people around me. And again, I want to backtrack. When I was in Columbus, I was running it the same way. So you got to understand, like when you're a business owner, treat it as a business. You know what I mean? Don't be the guy to like do everything all day, every day. I've been there, I've done that. But towards the end, before I left Ohio, like I was building it because I knew I had a goal of leaving and I couldn't physically be there. So build it as if you were not there. And then when you're not there, nothing really changes.
Yeah, and I think you probably avoid a lot of mistakes by doing it that way too. Really, if you're flipping or you're building a rental portfolio, I mean, you're self-employed essentially. I mean, you may have a job or a career, but your investments aren't necessarily I mean, you can lose, right? It's risky. So by pulling in these experts, these inspectors, other people that are looking for specific things, they help to really keep you educated. And we're going to dive into a little bit of that too, with some of your strategies on how you know, when you see a good deal and how do you really manage it to make sure that that good deal doesn't become a bad deal. Because when you're investing, I mean, even when it's a rental, I mean, if there are critical things that you're not finding, you can really spend a lot of money on it. And there is a difference between, I guess, and I mean, we'll talk about that too, on, what is a flip quality renovation versus a rental quality renovation, because there is, at least for me, there's a big difference in that. You don't need to make it as polished and as nice. Are you seeing, Austin, any kind of indicators that pricing is going down? Are you seeing where things are sitting on the market longer?
So in Columbus, right, there's an inner belt, which is the city of Columbus, and there's suburbs around it. And I mean, 6 months ago, everything was selling like hotcakes. One day on the market, multiple offers, boom, gone, everything. And what I've started to see over the last 6 months or so, things inside the city of Columbus are sitting on the market longer. Things in the suburbs are still flying like crazy. I can kind of see it slowing down a little bit right now, but we haven't really seen a change on the suburb side of things. But in the city of Columbus, absolutely. There's houses sitting on the market for 2, 3, 4, 5 months. And we've had some of those houses. And it's like, what do you mean? Like, we didn't get an offer in the first day? What's going on? But like, that's not a normal market. So I have seen that happen. We're not pushing numbers too crazy, really at all right now. We're trying to be very realistic, because people, when markets go south and people get burned, it's because they over exaggerated what numbers really are today in hopes that they are those things in the future, and they're normally not. So as long as you stay consistent with what you're doing and you're being realistic, it's hard to lose. And the other thing that we're doing too, instead of doing like super high end $1 million houses, I guess we have one we're finishing up right now, but like we're not buying anymore, because like to me those will be the first ones to get hit. If you're in the first time home buyer market, which for us is like $100,000 to $200,000, it's very hard to lose on those, because even if it doesn't sell and all the buyers disappear, people still need a place to live. So you can go ahead and rent that property and still make money through the rental property. So you actually have multiple exit strategies, which with a high-end flip, the only exit is to sell the house. So for us, we're just trying to limit our risk as much as possible right now.
Well, I know, you've been in for many years now. So, you started a while ago and you've seen this market kind of ramp up. So it wasn't like, even 3 years ago, we didn't see what we've seen the last 18 months. Really, inventory's been short, yes, but the buyers have been going crazy. And what we've seen in our market here in Maryland, and it is kind of, even somebody like myself that has been investing for 25 plus years in real estate, it's a little bit risky right now, I would say, because depending on what your strategies are, if you're flipping, like I'm doing this current flip, even since I purchased it 30 days ago in the market that I bought this flip, I'm starting to see where the comps are really softening. And, a lot of people say, well, it can be a couple different reasons. One reason can be the market was overpriced. And what I always tell people is, if you're not as experienced as Austin, to where he knows where the market price should be and where the deal really lies, a lot of people will be misled by the price. So they might think, okay, well, if the house is, let's just say, priced at 300,000 and the price changes to 280 or 260, that it's still a good deal. But without knowing that the house could have been way overpriced, and just because the price has been reduced still doesn't mean it's a good deal. So you have to be really careful when the prices have been running the way they have, and agents honestly are listening to their sellers versus really establishing where it should be priced. But the other thing is that we may just be getting back to a traditional real estate market, which means it's the fall. We saw, traditionally real estate's hot in the spring, the prices are higher. The summer it cools off because people go on vacations. Then they have back to school. They're getting their children established. So if you're buying that flip and you're finding that now you're landing in a sale time that's now, you may be affected by the holiday season. There may not be as many buyers that are out there. But we all know, I mean, any seasoned investor in Austin, I know you believe this, your profit is always on the buy side.
For sure.
And agreed. I mean, right? I mean, that's
100%.
how we make our money. If we don't buy it right, a lot of times you just can't make it back. And I mean, it's still risky enough in the construction side, even with all of your experience and expertise and knowledge. But the purchase price is so critical because the sale price, if you're not seeing where people will spend over appraised value, will just prevent you from making up any of your mistakes in pricing. What have you found to be the best avenue to find a flip or a rental property? You said wholesalers. Are you doing any marketing to the sellers directly?
Yeah, no, great question. And real quick, kind of back to your last point, like buying a bad deal. You make your money when you buy. You realize it when you sell, and you can never fix a bad buy. Period. There's no way around any of those things. So I 100% agree with you. But as far as how to find deals right now, we're buying a ton from wholesalers. We're not doing any internal direct to seller marketing right now. Previously our best marketing streams was cold calling and SMS, so text messages. And then up until we stopped doing marketing in general, direct mail I did for 7 years. Since the first day I started real estate until then, we did direct mail. Even when everybody said direct mail was dying, we still got deals from direct mail. Because in my opinion, everybody's going away from direct mail. So that means there's more opportunity there because nobody's doing it. It wasn't the highest return, but we still got deals. But cold calling and SMS was definitely our best strategy of getting deals.
So can you just kind of explain the process? So if somebody's listening and, they want to buy property and they want to send postcards out, are there things that you've learned that were more successful than others?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you market, you have to market to people, right? What people do you market to? So what we found is the more niche you go on a list, which means the more detailed the list is, the higher response rates you have. Now, the problem with that is when you go very niche, you can't have a massive list. So, getting a deal or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, can happen like that. If you want to scale to 10 deals a month, you got to go broad because there's just not enough data. So maybe when you're starting out, go niche. And what does niche mean? Niche means a probate list, a divorce list, your own driving for dollars list, a tax lien list, a water shut off list, a eviction list, a code violation list. All those lists are motivated, you would think motivated sellers, right? It doesn't always mean they're motivated because some people, unfortunately are delusional, but they have a reason to sell. So those, what we found were the best ways to market to people and get deals. The only problem with that is, again, you can't scale at large with very niche targeted lists because the lists simply are, that long. So once you start scaling, then you go into the high equities, the non-owner occupied, the owner occupied, and you just kind of market to everybody. Like us, we bought the entire county and marketed to the entire county, after I got into the business, built up, made some money where I could afford to do that.
So, and that cost, that I'm sure you have a pretty big marketing budget for that. I mean, it's not cheap sending out postcards
For sure.
or doing any of it, right? Can you give us an example of what a conversation and how it goes? So you send a postcard to somebody who reaches out to you. Kind of,
Mhm.
what is your experience with that? What's that conversation sound like?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So there's inbound marketing and outbound marketing, right? So inbound marketing is direct mail, PPC, SEO, bandit signs. It's when people just get stuff and they see it and they're like, oh, like, yeah, I do need to sell my house. And then they call you. And then there's outbound marketing like cold calling, direct mail, RBM, SMS. You're reaching out to people and they're like, I guess I'd sell. So two different type of motivations, first and foremost. So this one over here, you got to kind of slow roll it. You got to build a lot of rapport. Usually when people are calling you to sell, there's usually a lot more motivation, especially if it's on like PPC or SEO, like they're searching on Google, like I need to sell my house today. Like it doesn't get much more motivated than that. So kind of a little bit two different conversations, but overall the flow goes, relatively the same. You answer it obviously, and they say, hey, I got a postcard, or, yeah, what's up? You called. You want to ask for the person directly. So whoever you're talking to or trying to reach, ask for them directly. Don't say like, hey, is Joe around? Well, what do you need Joe for? No, he's not around. Person's like, hey, Joe, how you doing? Oh, yeah. Give me 1 second. Let me go get Joe. Because you sound like you're more personal and you know the person. So you'll connect to a lot more people doing it like that. Then you just got to build rapport. Talk to them, let them know that you're there. Hey, I was just reaching out about your property 123 East Main Street. I was in the neighborhood and I was just seeing if you had any interest in selling the property. Or, hey, I'm looking to buy a house for me and my family. Or, hey, I was driving by and the house looked vacant. I wanted to see if you had any interest in selling. Create the intro. They'll say yes or no. And then to me, it's always building rapport. Most people go like, all right, how much do you want? No, it's not how you try and sell somebody on the phone. Build rapport, ask them about the house. Like the best deals that I got is when I would sit there and let this person talk to me for hours and hours and hours and tell me everything about their family and their cousins and their, when they were young, when they grew up in the house, and just let them talk. Too many people like rush through that. But build rapport. Then at the end of the day, you have to eventually get the price. We do that after we ask about condition and so forth. So tell me a little bit more about the property. Oh, well, the property's beautiful. Okay, well, if you were to live in the property for the next 10 years, what would you do to the property to update it? Well, if I was here for 10 years, I'd probably do the kitchens and the baths. Okay, cool. So that's what you actually need to do. So there is a rehab needed. And the funny one is like, well, tell me more about the roof and the furnace and some of the higher end things. Oh, the roof's brand new. Okay, how old is it? Oh, I put it on 15 years ago. It's brand new. So you got to get an idea of the condition of the property. And then you get the price. And the first person who gives a price loses all the time. So, come up and say like, okay, Miss Jones, as just talk. Sounds like the house needs this, and this. Keeping that in mind, what would you be looking to sell the property for? Well, I don't really know. I never thought about it. Okay, that and usually they'll like reference another house like down the street. Like, well, Bob's house sold for $300,000 or something. Okay, well, have you been in Bob's house? No. And then you can pull it up on the internet. What's the address? Boom, pull it up. Okay, well, Bob's house has, 1,000 more square feet than yours, or an extra bedroom, or a fully renovated kitchen. Like you said, yours wasn't, it's probably going to cost $30,000, $40,000. So kind of like get in her mind to start second guessing her price. And just be like, Miss Jones, like, I really want to get this deal done for you so you can, whatever they said during the report session, so you can get this off your plate, so you can move to Florida, so you can, stop hating your brothers and sisters, whatever the reason is. I really want to get this done so I can get that off of your plate so you don't have to deal with it at all, and I can get this done as quickly as possible. If we can get this done here in the next week or two, what's the best price that you can give me? So again, you ask once, you ask twice, you keep asking until they give you a price. And she may give you a price. She may say, well, Austin, you called me like, I don't, you tell me a price. Miss Jones, like I could tell you $1. You would hang up on me and cuss me out and hang up the phone. Like I'll give you $1, but like, obviously you want more than that. I need to have an idea of where you're at. Are you at 50K, 100K, 500K? Just give me an idea. And then they'll be like, well, be in the $150,000 to $200,000 range. Cool. Why didn't you say that in the first place? And then there, you know if you're close or not. If you need to be at like $5,000, you're not going to get the deal. If you need to be at like 140, you could negotiate that down to the price that you need. But it's intro, rapport, condition, price, and then motivation.
So that's smart. What you said from your experience is the one that gives the price first loses.
Always.
So the process when you're marketing, you send out 500 postcards. Obviously, you have no idea who's calling you. You may not have the address, right away and early in the conversation. And as you're talking, what's the next step on how you take that price and determine whether it's a good deal?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first started, I would gather all the information, get the price and everything. And I'd be like, all right, let me do some research and I'll call you right back. That's how I started at the beginning because I wasn't confident and I didn't practice it, right? The problem with that is that they're probably not going to answer your next call. Like if you get somebody on the phone, it's an opportunity of a lifetime. Take advantage of it. So what we do now and what I would recommend everybody doing, and you should sit there and practice and role play doing this because it's a lot happening at once. But when a call comes in, boom, internet's up, auditor's up, the MLS is up, or PropStream, or whatever you're using to comp houses. It's all ready to go. And then you're talking to them, you ask them about the address. Boom, Google the address. Now you know where it's at on a map. Then you say, tell me more about the property. And as they're sitting here telling you about the condition and whatever else they want to tell you about, you're going to the auditor, you're pulling up comps, you're pulling an ARV as they're telling you about the property. And that's another reason why you go really deep on the rapport side and ask more questions. Well, tell me about this. Tell me about that. I see that the house is on a dead end street. Did you grow up there? Yeah, I grew up there. Did you and your kids play soccer all the time out in the street? Just ask questions and get them to talk. And then condition, right? Tell me about the condition. Well, what would you do with this? What would you do with that? Tell me about the roof. Tell me about the furnace. Get as much time. You're buying time. So as much time as possible so you can run numbers and you know where you need to be at before you've even gotten to the price. So they're talking, you run numbers, you come up with the ARV of $200,000. You have a quick spreadsheet, purchase, rehab, ARV, holding costs, boom. It tells you the profitability and you already know where you need to be. So as they're telling you about the condition, you can start putting the numbers on the repair estimator. Okay, this is a cosmetic rehab, it's $25,000. So, ARV 200, $25K rehab, boom, what's a $100K purchase look like? Oh, okay, I can pay a little bit more. Okay, what's a $110K purchase look like? Oh, okay, a little bit more. 120 max, that's where I need to be. So then when you get to the price and they say 120, you don't be like, okay, cool, let's do it. You're like, I don't know, Mr. Seller, I might be able to get that high. I got to run it by my partner. If it's something that we can get done, on Friday, we can close it out and we can get whatever you need to do. We can get you to that move or whatever it is by Friday. If we can only get to maybe 100 or 110,000, but we pay all closing costs, is that something that, you'd be okay with? I really wanted 120, but, I want to get this done too. Okay, Ms. Jones, give me 1 second. Let me talk to my business partner. I'm going to put you on mute real quick. I'm going to see if I can get this done for you here today. How's that sound? Sounds good. Put it on mute, celebrate, cheer, go hit the gong, whatever it is, and, unmute it. Like, hey, Mr. Seller, I talked with my business partner. I got great news for you. We have the money lined up for Friday or the 30th or the 1st or whatever it is. And we can get this done for you. We can pay all closing costs. But I'm going to tell you, he wanted to be at $100,000. And I know you're not going to go that low, and I'm okay with that. And I'm willing to eat some of that cost as well. Is there anywhere in the middle that we can get this done at? Well, where's the middle at? Like I said, he wanted to be at $100,000. You said 120. I know I can't pay 120, even though you can. Where can we meet at, Ms. Jones? Again, we're paying everything. We'll even take care of the stuff that's left in the house. We'll get the dumpster for you. We'll even pay for your movers. Movers cost like $1,000 or $2,000 or something. Well, I guess, if we can meet in the middle, $110,000. So you spent $2,000 for movers and you got a $10,000 price reduction. So yeah, absolutely. You try to get it on the phone at the same time. And then once they say okay, $110,000 works. Perfect. What's your email? Boom. Type the email in, generate the contract, send it out. awesome, Miss Seller, this is amazing. We're looking forward to working with you. Go ahead and pull up your email right now. It's a quick one-page agreement. I'll go over it with you on the phone here and pull it up, talk about it, and then decide it. One thing I forgot to say before you get to price, a question that you have to ask is, are there any other decision makers involved? Because if there are, and you're only talking with her, you're done. You get a 110, you're like, boom, perfect. What's the email? Boom, send the email. You ready to sign? She's like, oh, I got to talk to my husband. And then talk to the husband. The husband's like, no, we need 190 because you didn't build rapport with them. So you have to ask about other decision makers, husband, wives, kids, attorneys, realtors, whatever it is. Figure out who's involved, get them all on the phone, and then go through that process.
Yeah, you really have it down to a science. Is there, you referenced PropStream. I mean, there's a couple sites out there. I mean, is there a resource that you can say has everything that you just mentioned, or where do you get the questions? Is it just the experience? Where do you get the spreadsheets you're referring to?
For sure. For me, it's something I built over time. I've had scripts from a whole bunch of different mentors, and then I put them together and kind of made my own. I've had spreadsheets from all different mentors, and I kind of put them together and made my own. We have a spreadsheet, and you literally fill out a 30 slot repair, like kitchen, bath, countertop, flooring, landscape. You go, yes, 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 no, no, no. Spits out a budget, puts it in. You put the ARV and the price, and then it tells you if it's a good deal or not. So, it kind of comes from trial and error. What I can tell you is when we flip houses, we look to make 15 to 20% of the ARV. So if the ARV is $200,000, we're looking to net $30,000 to $40,000. That's after paying construction, lenders, interest, realtor fees, transfer fees, title taxes, utilities, everything. We want to net 15 to 20%.
That's a nice cushion too. If you're trying to at least start with less than that, I think that's great advice, because if you're starting out with less than that, there are always overruns. I know, again, I mean, even with all my construction experience and having a construction business, and we're always seeing the unexpected. You mentioned something. You said real estate fees. So far, I'm a licensee. I have a real estate brokerage here, and we work with a lot of investors. But I do know that wholesalers find these deals. I mean, these off-market deals. And, if you can get connected with the wholesalers, chances are you're going to pay less than what you would if it was listed on the MLS. A lot of realtors do specialize in serving investors, such as myself and a couple other agents that we have. And as a buyer, I have found some of my best deals on the MLS listed as a standard sale, not as a bank-owned property or a foreclosure or an auction, just regular standard sale. Maybe it was overpriced, but maybe it was an estate sale or probate, something like that. And I have been very strategic and successful in properties that are distressed to the point that a retail buyer probably wouldn't get a loan, right? I mean, They do have rehab loans that are out there, but they're not as cut and dry. They're a little more difficult, a lot more hoops, a lot of times a lot more hoops than the seller's willing to withstand.
Yep.
What can you tell people? And I know you've dealt with real estate agents before. You have a lot of experience with that. And what can you tell people listening that don't have the budget to go out and, market on their own, or, trust that they would be able to have those conversations, because there are agents out there that can help them with this? And your experience, what should the conversation go like when that investor, that new investor, reaches out to an agent to find out, number one, if they're qualified, and number two, if that is a good way for them to go?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I'm a licensed realtor, and I don't use it. I work with agents all the time, because when you build those relationships, one, it saves you time, and two, it brings more money in the door, because the second they hear about an opportunity, They want commissions. So who are they calling? You, because they're trying to double in the deal. It's very, very simple. So 100% build relationships with agents. If you get in good with a couple agents, they can funnel your deals. Like I got a buddy, he owns 5,000 rental properties. He's got every single one from his one agent. I'm like, talk about a relationship, So it only takes one person. Yeah, facts. He's getting paid because the dude performs on every single deal, right? So that's the big thing. Like once you do get an opportunity and it makes sense financially, just make sure that you perform on it. Otherwise, they're gonna be like, "Well, I'm on to the next because like you're messing with my money." And you can like performing a variety of things. You can raise private money. You can use your own money. You can use hard money. You can find another buyer, act like it's you. So you build a rapport, whatever it is. Like there's a lot of ways. You just got to find one way to get the agent paid and perform on the deal. But as far as like what it looks like, if you go into the realtor books and just start calling all the realtors that are in the city, they're all going to cuss you out and yell at you because the thing with agents, most agents don't like working with investors or they don't understand the investor thing. You're telling them you're buying at 50 cents on the dollar. They're like, that's impossible. You're crazy. Like it's never happened before. We do it every single day. Right. So what I would recommend is look at houses that are like distressed, agents that are selling distressed houses, or houses that are fully renovated, because there's obviously an agent that's working with somebody with a fully renovated house. So they're both investor friendly, and talk to those people and just say like, hey, I see that you're working with, flip houses or REOs or whatever it is. Looks like you got a lot of probate leads. Like they might be tied in with a probate attorney, right? I can see you're working with, all these types of opportunities. I wanted to reach out. I would love for you to represent me on these deals, put a little bit more money in your pocket. If you have experience, lean on that. Like I've done this, this, and this. I have $1 million of private money. I'll perform on anything you bring me. If you don't have experience, just say like, hey, I'm ready to perform. I have this contact. I have that contact. I'm ready to do this. Or I'm ready to do that. You just got to build rapport with those people. You can ask to take them out to lunch or coffee. Usually if those people are busy, they're usually not just going to coffee all the time for free. But again, it's just like talking to a seller. You got to build rapport and you got to find a way to add value to them. If you're really, really new, ask if you can run lock boxes for them or put signs in the yard or something. Then they'll feel responsible to kind of help you in return. But you got to find a way to add value. And then, hopefully get them to work with you. Once you get an opportunity, just make sure you fulfill that opportunity.
You had an amazing suggestion, probably the best I've ever heard, to look for properties that are newly rehabbed and contact that agent. I mean, that's brilliant because chances are they have a relationship with that investor. If it's an investor that is, doing that flip, yeah, that's really good. I can also say, as an experienced investor agent, be honest with, when you do find a good, agent that you could work with, that's willing to work with you, an investor. And Austin's right. A lot of agents aren't qualified to work with investors. One of the first things, right, Austin, is make sure that they've probably invested themselves. Because if they don't understand the construction process or they're not experienced, they're not going to be able to help you. But be honest with them too, because I get a lot of times the people, if you don't have money or you need hard money, just say that. A lot of times people, I guess they're almost embarrassed, that it's their first flip and they try and portray themselves as somebody that they're not. And a lot of times the first question that I'll ask is, how much cash do you have? And sometimes they'll say, oh, well, I have $50,000 in cash. And they really don't. If you have $2,000 in cash, just say I have $2,000 in cash. I think at that point, if they really want to help you build, they want to work with you, they're going to point you in the right direction, give you the resources, at least educate you. But you also said something that is very interesting, because in a time when I think we have 1.3 million licensed real estate agents in the United States, the Wall Street Journal, right, a couple months ago, actually published that there were more licensees than there were available houses to buy. And, look, we just did an interesting little study. We took about 8 zip codes. Now, we're in a very populated area, here in Maryland. So we're close to DC, close to Baltimore. It's a lot, high density, a lot of density.
Yep.
And we took like 8 zip codes around our one Baltimore County office, which is a huge radius.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to find out how many licensed real estate agents did 15 sales so far this year, which some may question in our market if that's even a livelihood, right?
Yeah.
15 commission sales. Certainly not I don't tell people how much money they should make, but when you look at the fees and things like that as being an agent, but I drilled it down to at least one sale up to 15 sales. And there were 449 agents that came up in that search.
From
very
1
small
to
number.
15 or 15
Very
plus?
small number. The bulk of them was one transaction. So,
That's crazy.
it's probably like a 95-5 rule. 5% of the agents are doing 95% of the business.
Yeah.
So, but you said something very interesting. And as an investor and a licensee myself, you're a smart guy because you've realized that most people are motivated by money. Why mess around with the contracts and negotiations and all that stuff for $5,000 commission that they may get or $3,000 that they may get on the purchase, right?
Yeah.
Why not have somebody else doing the work? But the important thing too, for you guys out there that have your real estate license that want to buy your own properties, there's a certain amount of liability that comes with that too.
For sure.
It's nice to be able to, Austin, it's nice to be able to put that security between the two, right? The agent and the buyer or the seller.
For sure.
Let's talk a little bit about getting the work done. Because people are buying these properties. We're at all-time low in trying to find contractors. There's shortages, material shortages, things like that. I'm waiting. I need a medallion. In this flip, and you'll relate to this, is a plaster house. And the electrician made his new holes with a hammer. You've seen that before, right?
For sure.
Why use a saw when you can, make a bigger hole with a hammer? Well, the problem is now we have to worry about patching that, and plaster's not easy to patch. So the guys came in, they patched it up, and it wasn't a lot of holes, just a couple holes. But anyway, the dining room light, I bought a rectangular light, and the only way that we can hang this light without going through a lot of repairs, because even the guy that was patching didn't get close enough to where the discussion will fit over top of that hole. So I needed a medallion, but I have a rectangular light. I needed a rectangular medallion. It's taken me 3 weeks to get that.
That's great.
And slows things down. But how do you go through the contracting process? How do you hire the contractors? Somebody new to this business, what suggestions do you have?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're starting a project, especially if it's like a higher end project, you need to order your material like ASAP. We just ordered a cabinet set, not just, but a couple months ago. It was a 12 to 16 week delivery window. I guess 3 to 4 months just to get cabinets, right? Luckily, like the project was a large project. We didn't need cabinets for 3 to 4 months. But what if we were like, oh, we need cabinets, time to order them. And then the time we need them, we have to wait another 3 to 4 months. So if you're doing anything like nice, custom, high end, order material like as soon as the job starts, because like you said, there's a lot of supply issues right now. But as far as like finding contractors, construction, in my opinion, is the hardest part about real estate. So, it's going to be trial and error. You're going to hit your head a couple of times, and that's okay. I've spent way more money than I wanted to spend on projects. I've talked with hundreds and hundreds of contractors. I've probably gone through 40 to 50 of them. It's just part of the game. So at the beginning, when you're finding them, going to Lowe's in the morning, going into other people's job sites, getting on real estate Facebook groups, asking for referrals, Craigslist, like all these ways you want to talk to as many people as possible, and then vet them. Like, hey, how do you handle payments? Well, I need 100% of the rehab up front. No, I'm not giving you 100% when no work's been done. Or yeah, I'm a one-man show. I can do your whole job just by myself. The job's probably going to take a year, right? So those are some of the questions that you have to ask to make sure that they're actually like real contractors. Insurance, liabilities, workers' comps. Most people don't have that. I'm not going to give advice, but we look for license with the city, and then insurance on their business. Those are our big things. Once we find somebody, we put them in the job. We use 5 critical documents: a scope of work, a draw schedule, a lien release, a W-9, and an independent contractor and hold harmless agreement. So those kind of protect us as an investor, right? So have them sign those. They'll start the job. If it's not going well, we'll fire them. We'll bring somebody else in with 5 new documents for them. Just kind of go through that process to get the job done. There's 2 ways you can do it. You can hire a GC to do the whole thing, or you can be the GC and you can hire each trade out separately. I've done it both ways. There's no right or wrong here. When I did it where I was the GC, I had to be on site every day. Jobs got done a whole lot faster for a lot less money, but like I had to manage it every single day. Now we just hire a general contractor and, have them do it top to bottom. But you can pick your own strategy, kind of depends on your knowledge, your skill, your time availability. But yeah, I mean, if you got to fire somebody, fire them. Don't wait. Like it never gets better. But understand that construction's tough. Don't give up on it. One person doesn't work. Don't pay people a massive amount of money up front. If they walk off the job, then you're screwed. All these things. And then to the big thing, numbers, understanding numbers on a deal. Make sure that you have contingency budgets and that your profitability is large enough. So let's say like you think a rehab's 20 grand and you're looking to net profit $20,000 on that deal. You get into the deal and, it's 30 grand instead of 20 grand, which is very realistic, by the way. That's like 1 or 2 mess ups. Happens all the time. And then you sell the house for 190 instead of 200. You just netted 0 on that entire deal. Hopefully you netted 0. I've been in deals where I spent 9 months. I sold it. The buyer bought it. On top of everything I did, I paid the buyer another 30 grand just to buy the house for me. It's not a good feeling. So make sure you have contingency budgets for construction and make sure you have enough profitability so you don't lose money.
That is great advice. That is great advice. And, guys, if you're listening, you need to hit replay, and listen to this again, because that was the best advice. What I find, and I'm guilty of it too. I mean, look,
Same.
Austin, I've lost money. I mean, I remember 4 years ago, I bought a house, $30,000 what I lost. And what happened was I didn't even touch it because when I bought it, I realized I had made a mistake. And I knew when I got into this thing and just looking at it, I knew that I was never going to get out and it was going to be worse. So I actually sold it to another investor and a hard money lender for $30,000 less, including closing costs and everything, the whole deal, because that was the best loss. Had I just gone through with it anyway, would have been more than that. But what Austin's talking about,
and your time and your opportunity cost and everything.
Yes. And what Austin's talking about is that, and I'm guilty of it, what he's talking about is whether you're on your first flip or flip number 500, because the habits that we develop early on have a tendency to stick with us. If we're hiring the wrong people, we tend to hire the wrong people again. We make the same mistakes sometimes if we don't change the way that we behave. Not making sure they have insurance. You have a tendency to never make sure they have insurance. Not having a contractor agreement, having that contractor sign your contract. They may have a contract, but you better have a contract. And it better say things like they can't put mechanics liens on the property, things that, hold harmlesses, that they're going to follow the building codes properly, that they're going to, if they have employees, that they're going to cover workers' comp insurance, regardless of whether they do or not. You better have this document. Great advice. When you're in a project, and we have all been there. I'm in a project right now. $60,000 is my construction budget. I know I'm over. I'm at 60,000 today. I'm probably going to be somewhere about 64,000, which is livable, right? Yeah. in within the contingency that Austin has talked about, what types of things do you do when you get into this project and you realize that, oh wow, we have found something here that we weren't planning on? And before you answer that, because I know I could tell. I mean, you analyze these deals. You are probably watching every step of the way, every penny that's paid, every check that goes out, or you have somebody that's doing it. When you start to realize that something's going off budget, how do you reel it in? And, what does that look like?
Absolutely. So at the end of the day, if you're going over budget, you're going over budget. Most people like freeze up and they're like, "Oh God, what am I going to do? Like, this isn't going to work." And then they stall for 2 months, and then they lose the same amount of money on a holding cost that they would just finishing the job. So if you're over budget, you're over budget. It's that simple. You still got to finish the job. Now you can try and like save as much as possible, but don't slow down and don't stop because you're just shooting yourself in the foot. So what we do, if we're like mid-project and we know it's going south, like instead of hiring a GC, we'll independently sub. So we'll save a little bit of money on the GC cost. So we'll hire our own electrician, our own plumber, our own HVAC, our own trim, our own drywall. Let's try and save a little bit of money. Or the problem, like when you get in there and you plan on putting in like LVT flooring in the whole house, and they're like, "Oh, the budget's not good." Then you put carpet in. The problem is when you go to sell that house, you're going to sell it for less than you saved on doing carpets to the LVT. So we rarely ever cut back on like finishes because the finishes that we planned was to get us the ARV that we planned for, right? We might take out like a custom shoe rack or something like that, maybe. But we try not to cut the finishes because, again, that's what's getting us to the number that we need to get to. The worst thing you can do is cut the finishes and then you cut the price and you're in the same position, if not worse. Timelines are huge. When you start realizing you're losing money, you can't be lackadaisical on the timeline because, again, every day you have holding costs. You have interest, you have taxes, you have insurance, you have expenses every single day. So you got to be on it more than you was on it in the past. Again, that's the importance of having a contingency budget. We put 10 to 20. If we think it's going to cost 20 grand, we add 10 to 20% to that. And if we think it's going to be 100 grand, we add 10 to 20% on top of that. The 10% is like how confident we are in the rehab. 20% is a big rehab. There's a lot that can go wrong. So we have to have contingency budgets, and you want to make sure your profitability is large enough. So if it sells for less, you don't lose money. You just make less money. I bought a house for $7,000 and sold it for $325,000. No, I bought it for $25,000 and sold it for $325,000. And I net profited $7,000. I blew a $300,000 budget. I budgeted for 220. I spent 120. I spent like 220, and it took me 6 months longer than I thought it was going to take. So like things go south. The larger the rehab, the more contingency that you need.
Yeah, that's, I started to do things myself to try and bring it back in. And I realized that wasn't smart either. Now you said, you bring your in-house guys in. I was actually finding myself there doing some painting, doing some caulking, and I quickly stopped that. I said, in 25 years experience, I'm going, man, this is a nickel holding up a dime. We gotta stop this. So exactly. I picked up the phone. I started calling in some favors of some, people that I give a lot of work to and said, look, I'm tight on this one. I don't want you to lose money, but we gotta tighten it up. What do you suggest? What do you recommend? And, at the end of the day, but you're right. The first inclination of somebody without a lot of experience may be, okay, well, instead of putting quartz or granite countertops in the kitchen, maybe I'll use Formica. And they forget at the end of the day, you want to be at top dollar. You may not get somebody give you a stupid amount over, appraised value, but you still want them to want it. And if you, you cut in the wrong spots, you're going to hurt yourself. So, this is the first flip that I'm in the middle of in 2 years. So I did a flip 2 years ago. Prior to that, I was doing, a lot of flips and building houses and have been doing it for, a long time. But, Austin, I still am an emotional roller coaster when I'm going through the projects, right? I mean, you're writing checks, you're dealing with these people. It's like you start out in the morning and you feel great, right? And maybe you work out, you eat a nice breakfast, and then you get out on the road, or you start dealing with the calls and the this and the that, and everybody's telling you why it can't happen the way that you intended it for, or whatever. It's not always that way, but these days happen. How do you keep yourself focused mentally to remind yourself, like, I'm glad I'm in this business? What types of things or tips that you can give somebody that may be buying something, their first deal may cost them $20,000, hopefully not, but how do you get them through it?
Absolutely. So two things that I did in my past, when I was marketing and when I was managing construction, every time the bills came in, every time I'd be like, ooh, it's a $5,000 marketing bill. Like, I'm going to pay this next week. Right. And I think about it. Ooh, it's $5,000. I knew I was going to spend it, but then you start hesitating. So rehabs too, you got to pay this guy 20 racks and he invoices you for the first 10 grand. You're like, ooh, this is a lot of money. So what I did is I put somebody in place, and then the check needs paid. I mean, it's already there. It's already ready to be paid. It's already budgeted for. It needs paid. So I just have somebody else pay the check for me. Now I don't think about and stress about it. It just happens because it's already within the budget. So that's one thing, maybe, like, just write the check, because again, it's already budgeted for, right? And when you start going over budget, you have a contingency budget. You're all right, cool. Like, I had 10 grand. That's 5. I'm good, right? So you can only control the controllables at the end of the day. That's something big that I live by, is control the controllables and forget about everything else. Not forget, prevent, but if it happens, it happens, right? It's just part of the game. So to me, it's just not getting in your own head. When checks start coming in, write the check ASAP and don't dwell on it, because like that'll stress you out a lot. So flipping houses, like, people try to like make construction a variable cost. It's a fixed cost. Like, the construction is the construction. It's going to cost what it's going to cost. Can you maybe save a little bit on a general contracting fee or something? Yeah. But are you going to buy a $2 floor for anything other than $2? Probably not. That's a fixed cost. So people spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to change something that's fixed, rather than going after a variable, which is getting another deal, right? Like, I'd rather take my time and go get another deal, or if I net zero on this one, I'm not trying to make, do all the work myself and make $2,000 instead of 0. I'm trying to go get another deal to make 20 grand instead of 0. So it's like opportunity cost. Control what you can control and bring in other opportunities for the rest of your time.
Any advice for someone that is on the fence, whether they should buy a flip or buy a rental? Is there any way that they should be determining whether this business is really for them, to take it to a dream, or, make it happen, or just, decide, I'm just not going to move forward?
I mean, the best way to learn is by doing it. You're never going to have that answer without doing it. I was extremely nervous on my first deal. The first deal I put under contract, I didn't sleep the entire night. So I was like, I'm overpaying. Why'd I get this deal? Nobody else got this deal. Like, something's got to be wrong. Literally stayed up the whole night. And then the next day, we got inspected. It was destroyed. We sent a counter offer with the price reduction. They denied it. Life went on. Everything was cool. First house that I flipped, I was so nervous. It was a $170,000 construction budget. Very nervous. 25 grand into the foundation. But like, the only way to learn is by doing it. So if you're on the fence, like, literally, you got to ask yourself. You got to look at yourself in the mirror. Like, are you comfortable with where you're at? The answer's probably no. If you're thinking about getting into real estate, you probably want more out of life. Guess what? Only way to actually get more out of life is by taking action. So it's part of the process. Again, failure is going to happen. Hitting your head is going to happen. Firing people is going to happen. Losing some money is going to happen. Like, all that's going to happen. So what are we freaking out about? When I make a decision, I look at two things. What's like most probable scenario? Like, what's an ideal outcome? All right, cool. I'll make 20 grand. What's worst case scenario? I net 0, or I lose $5,000. Are you okay with risking a net 0 or 5 grand to make 20? If your answer is no, then you have your answer. Don't do real estate. Keep working whatever you're doing and living how you want to live, I guess. But if you're okay with those outcomes, if you're okay with the worst case scenario, pull the trigger and move on. Like, it's a simple, people overcomplicate decision making. What's best case? What's worst case? Are you okay with it? Yes. Pull the trigger and move forward.
Simply put, what's next for Austin for the next 3 to 5 years? What can we expect to see from you, man? Where are you going from here? What are some of your goals?
Absolutely. Real estate's been amazing to me. We're going to continue to build the rental portfolio, get up into hundreds of units. I think that's an amazing opportunity to continue to create wealth and make a lot of money. But where I'm spending a lot of my time as well is building a brand. I believe eyeballs is currency, and focusing on cryptocurrencies. I've seen things that I've never seen before in my life as far as making money and how quickly you can make it in the cryptocurrency space, and I believe it's the future. So those are the things I'm focusing on, continuing to do real estate, but venturing out and finding other ways to make as much, if not more money than real estate can make.
It's awesome. Well, guys, there you have it. I hope you have enjoyed this Tuesday night podcast and that you've learned from this great conversation, great educational hour of, Austin Rutherford sharing his experiences. Guys, he's really busy. All of his contact information, like I said, is in the show notes. Feel free to reach out to him. I know he's doing a lot of events now. I think, are you doing in-person events again? I mean, is that now?
Yep. We have masterminds, vacation masterminds, yacht days, all that stuff. But if anybody's interested, Instagram, I post everything I have on Instagram. Austin Rutherford Official.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much, Austin. It's great having you on the show.
Absolutely. Appreciate the opportunity.
All right, guys, until next week, have a great week.